Good morning. This is Dylan Jovine with Behind the Markets. Happy Thursday. Today's Thursday, March 26th. And today I'd like to talk about SpaceX. I'm responding to questions that I've gotten from our members, including one yesterday from Cindy B, who wrote in, and she's a good member of ours, a good friend of ours. She got into a serious accident some months back and has been going through rehabs and treatments, trying to get back on her feet. And I know she's feeling better because she asked me about the SpaceX IPO. So anyway, here are our 4 questions that I would ask myself about SpaceX's IPO. And I figured I'd share these with you because the company, by all accounts, is going public this summer, 90 days or so, between a $1.25 and a $1.75 trillion IPO. It's a big number. So first of all, what is SpaceX these days? And I have a lot of notes here. For most of SpaceX's 24-year history, the company made money from launching things to space for governments and other space firms and other companies. And I read the biography, the Walter Isaacson biography on Elon Musk, and I thought, frankly, that of all the cool things this man has done in his life, SpaceX was the coolest because he actually told the U.S. government, don't just lock in a big contract with us, pay us for performance. Pay us if we actually deliver. And that really changed and incentivized private space and really revolutionized that. So I'm a big fan of SpaceX, but we are investors. We could like something, but it doesn't mean we have to buy something. It's like a Honda Accord might be a great car, but is it worth $200,000? So the question is not whether SpaceX is a good company or not. The question is, what is it worth and whether you should buy it or not? So here are some questions that I'm going to answer to that end. So again, for most of its 24-year history, the company made money from launching things into space. But in the past few years, SpaceX began to use its own Starlink satellites to beam internet to subscribers, and that has now become its biggest revenue driver. And now that it has merged with Musk's xAI, it's crazy. The future seems like it's something different. A space, communications, and AI behemoth that will power a computing revolution with data centers in space. We'll see if that happens, but I would never bet against Elon Musk, that's for sure. So here's question number 2. With a $1.25 over $1 trillion IPO, what is the business generate in revenue? And I get it. People get very excited. Stocks go higher. This thing could go and trade crazy. Tesla doesn't really trade on its revenue on the car business. It trades on credits and all these other things. So, what I'm telling you, the way I'm looking at it is from the perspective of a private business. If I want to buy this private business, what would the business generate in revenue? If somebody asked me to pay $1.25 trillion for this private business, I'd say, what kind of revenue do you generate? What kind of profits do you generate? And I'll answer that question. SpaceX, at least before it bought xAI, was generating cash. But xAI, which they acquired and closed the deal on in February at a valuation of $250 billion, burned $9.5 billion in the first 9 months of last year and about $200 million in revenue. So lost $9.5 billion in 9 months. So the combined company is going to require heavy spending. But these are what the numbers look like. The current valuation is about $1 trillion, $1.25 trillion. SpaceX revenue was $16 billion in 2025. Their EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation, was $8 billion. That's huge. They're bringing 50% in EBITDA. That's high operating margins. It's very important. And they generated $1 to $2 billion in free cash flow. Very attractive business. xAI, on the other hand, $250 billion valuation, did about $210 million in the first 9 months of the year, no EBITDA, and lost $9.5 billion. So when you put them together, basically, xAI actually eliminates SpaceX's profit completely, really. The $9.5 billion loss that they burned in the first 9 months of the year is greater than the $8 billion in EBITDA that SpaceX generated. So that's going to be tricky for Elon. They're adding this zombie bleeding asset into SpaceX, which is going to be interesting. But again, I don't really bet against Elon Musk. I wouldn't. This guy's obviously a genius, the modern day Howard Hughes. That doesn't mean I'm going to buy a stock that he's involved in. That doesn't mean that I think this is a good bargain for its money, but I'm certainly not going to bet against him. That's crazy. So next question, how strong is SpaceX's grip on the launch industry. And how big could it get? Because again, with a valuation like that, we're talking $1.25 trillion. That's the kind of valuation that comes when you have a monopoly, basically, a super profitable monopoly in an industry. And that's without XAI. Currently, SpaceX is the dominant force in launching rockets to space. And I have it here. Out of 59 total rocket launches into orbit so far in 2026, 35 have been on SpaceX's Falcon 9. So over half. That's a big deal. Now, a big portion of SpaceX's launches put its own Starlink satellites into orbit, but the company also launches satellites, again, on behalf of governments and other companies like Amazon. It's just putting up satellites for everybody. Now, there are other significant but much smaller competitors in the launch business. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, which is still private, and Rocket Lab, which is public, which is a stock that we did very well with a year or so ago, as well as Chinese and European rivals. But the worldwide total value of the launch business itself is between 10 and $20 billion last year. So total value of the launch business tops $20 billion. Again, we're talking, even if it captured 100% of the total value, $20 billion, we'll call it, with 50% margins, that would be $10 billion in EBITDA. Again, contrast that, it's still, they're losing $9.5 billion on XAI, and it's still a $1.25 trillion IPO. Very interesting. Next question, last question. Is the stock market ready for SpaceX? This is a big deal. And you've been seeing a lot of propaganda out there. SpaceX is really pulling out all the stops to gin up demand for its shares. And you know what the company's considering doing, which is smart because there's so much retail investor demand, the company's considering divvying up roles. So you're going to have Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs sell shares to institutional investors, while Bank of America and Citibank focus on individual investors. So if you have a bank account at Bank of America or Citibank, you might want to talk to that representative to see how you could get SpaceX shares if you're interested, if this valuation doesn't scare you. And I get it, and whether the valuation is good long-term or not, sometimes these things just trade higher irrespective of fundamentals. And it's also fun. It's also a way to bet on Musk, which he's, again, a modern day Howard Hughes, just this visionary, brilliant guy. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.